I used to love the road, the quiet, the solitude, the sense of control. But my last haul broke all that. I haven't driven since. Haven't stepped foot inside a rig. And I never will again. Not after what was in that trailer. It was supposed to be routine. Just a straight shot from Memphis to a drop site out west. Easy money, clean paperwork, no overnight hotels. But looking back, I should have known something was wrong the second I saw the manifest. Everything was accounted for, except one thing. One pallet tucked in the back, wrapped in plastic and shoved behind the cold freight. No label. No scan. No mention in the logs. I didn't think much of it at the time. Figured it was a packing error or some warehouse guy's mistake. But that pallet, it wasn't meant to be there. It wasn't supposed to be touched. And once it was loaded, once that door slammed shut, something changed. I've tried forgetting, tried drinking it away, but it keeps finding me. In dreams, in reflections, in the silence between sounds. So I'm telling this now for anyone listening. If your trailer holds something that's not on the manifest, don't drive it. The pickup was outside Memphis, some third-party logistics yard I'd never used before. Real low-key setup. The guy at the gate handed me the manifest without looking up from his clipboard, told me to back into Dock 3 and keep it cold. Temp was set for 36 degrees, standard for medical freight. It all looked routine. I backed in, heard the freight crew, load up, and when the green light flashed, I popped the brakes and stepped out to double-check the tie-downs. Habit, mostly. I've had too many straps come loose on rough roads. When I opened the trailer, everything looked tight. Shrink-wrapped pallets stacked neat, IV bags, boxed monitors, sterile gloves. But in the very back, just barely visible past, the load's edge was something that didn't fit. A wooden crate. Old, splintered. No markings, no barcode. Just strapped down with a single ratchet like an afterthought. I climbed in and pulled the manifest out of my jacket. Not listed. I called, over to the guy walking off the dock. "Hey, this crate in the back, what is it?" He barely glanced up. "It's on your route. Same drop. Don't worry about it." "Yeah, but it's not on the manifest." He shrugged. "Sometimes they add extras last minute. Boss said load. So we did." I wanted to push, but something in his tone shut me down. Not rude, just final. Back in the cab, I looked at the route again. No company name, just a GPS coordinate outside Flagstaff. I'd done weird drops before. Military contracts, hush-hush pharma deliveries. This didn't feel that different. Still, that crate stuck with me. It didn't match anything else. Didn't even match the season. Wood crates like that warp in. Humidity. This one looked dry. Too dry. Almost like it hadn't been built recently but pulled out of somewhere forgotten. I told myself it was nothing. Told myself to log it as miscellaneous hold, lock the trailer and keep moving. But as I pulled out of the yard and the gate slid closed behind me, I swear that crate made a sound. A soft, hollow knock. Once. Just once. Like something inside had settled or woken up. First night out, I hit the I-40 westbound and made good time. Clear skies, cool air, and that steady hum of tires on asphalt that used to calm me. The route was quiet. No radio chatter, no cops, no late-night drifters. Just me, the engine, and the cold reefer unit keeping everything in back nice and steady. Around 2 a.m., somewhere outside Little Rock, I heard it. Rattle, tap, tap, rattle. It came from the trailer. At first, I thought it was just shifting cargo. Happens all the time on corners or inclines. But this was different. The rhythm felt intentional. Not like something sliding around, but like something testing the walls. I pulled off at a turnout, climbed down, and walked around to the back. Cold air spilled out when I unlocked and opened the trailer doors. Everything was right where I left. Pallets tight, straps secured, no sign of anything shifting. But the crate in the back had moved, not by much, maybe an inch. But enough that I noticed. I stepped in, crouched beside it, and put my hand on the wood. It was warm. Not room temp. Not truck temp. Warm. Like a heating pad left on low. The rest of the trailer was cold enough to mist my breath. But this crate radiated a slow, steady heat. Then something inside shifted, just a tiny scrape like fabric over wood, or nails on cardboard. I yanked my hand back and nearly fell on my ass, scrambling out of there. I stood by the open doors for a long minute, flashlight shaking in my hand. Nothing moved, no sound, just frost curling along the steel wall behind the box. I told myself it was an animal, a raccoon or a rat that got sealed in during loading. Maybe the crate wasn't empty. Maybe it was medical bio-waste and the heat was just a chemical reaction, something boring, something explainable. I closed the doors, locked them again, and got back behind the wheel. But as I pulled away from that turnout, I kept watching the mirror. And for a second, just a second, I swore the whole trailer shifted, sideways like something inside had pressed against the wall. By night 2, I was exhausted. I'd made it through Oklahoma and into New Mexico, riding caffeine and paranoia. Every sound in the truck set me off. I pulled into a rest area just outside Tucumcari, parked under the single busted light, and tried to shut my eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. That's when I heard it. Not rattling this time. Whispers, faint, slurred, coming from behind the reefer control panel, like someone mumbling into a tin can. I leaned closer to the vent by the bunk. The sound grew sharper. Wet syllables like a voice submerged in static, trying to form a sentence but never finishing. I snapped upright and grabbed my boots. I had to see that crate again. Outside, the desert was dead quiet. I unlocked the trailer, swung the door open, and immediately felt the drop in temperature. The reefer was working overtime way below safe range. Frost clung to the walls. My breath came out in thick clouds. The crate hadn't moved this time, but the scratches were new. Long, jagged gouges clawed into the inside of the trailer door, directly across from the crate. 4-pronged, uneven depth, like something tried to get out, or in. I don't know which was worse. My stomach turned as I noticed something else, a black smear trailing from the bottom of the crate. Thick, tar-like sludge. It pooled slightly on the floor, glistening under my flashlight. I crouched to get a better look, but the smell hit me. Sour, electric, wrong. Like rot and ozone blended into something chemical. I reached for my phone to call dispatch. Dead. Not low battery, just dead. Wouldn't turn on, wouldn't charge. I stood there in that freezing trailer, surrounded by frost and silence, staring at a box that hadn't been on the manifest and was now leaking. I closed the doors, locked them fast, and sat, in the cab shaking. A little after 3 a.m., the truck began to rock, gently at first, then harder, like something in the back was shifting its weight side to side, but the road was empty, and I wasn't moving. The final leg of the route took me into the Arizona desert, far past where GPS maps bother labeling anything. Just coordinates and a dusty access road that stretched for miles. No buildings, no signs. Just sun-bleached sand and silence pressing in from every direction. At the end of the road, I found a gate. No keypad, no security. As soon as I stopped, in front of it the hinges groaned and the gate swung open like it had been waiting. I crept the rig through, gravel crunching under my tires, my gut twisted into knots. There was no dock, no crew. Just a flat expanse of dirt and heat shimmering off the horizon. I put the truck in reverse, backed it into the clearing. That's when the reefer unit cut out. Not a slow wind down, just dead. A hard stop like someone yanked the power. Then, the trailer door clicked and opened. I sat there staring in the mirrors, heart slamming in my chest. I hadn't touched the latch. But the door swung wide. Dust kicked up. Inside, the crate was gone. Vanished. I scrambled out, ran to the back, hoping, somehow, I'd see tracks. A delivery crew, anything. But there was no one. Just a black trail, sticky and wet, snaking out from the trailer and disappearing into the open desert. And on the floor of the trailer, right where the crate had been, was something that should have still been in my cab. My logbook. It was open. The pages flipped slowly in the breeze, but the entries, none of them were mine. They were dated weeks into the future. Routes I'd never taken, cities I'd never planned to visit. Each one had the same last line written at the bottom. Cargo. Received. My hands shook as I picked it up. The last page had tomorrow's date. Under it, 2 words in handwriting that wasn't mine. You're next. I dropped the book and backed away. The black trail in the sand was already drying, curling at the edges, whatever I delivered. It had never been cargo. It had been a passenger. I left the rig right there in the desert. Didn't even shut the door. Just walked until I found a highway. Flagged down a trucker heading east and hitched my way back to Tennessee without ever looking back. I told the company I was done. Burned my uniform. Tossed my work phone in the river. Thought I could move. On 3 days later, the logbook showed up on my doorstep. No note, no package. Just sitting there on the welcome mat like it had been dropped off by hand. I opened it. New entries. More routes I've never taken. Places I've never been. Always the same pattern. Pick up, drop off, final line, cargo received. And every single one includes an unmarked crate, no labels, no manifest. The last entry changes every night, updates itself. New date, new location. A loop that never ends. I tried burning the book. It doesn't burn. I tried burying it. Next morning it was back on my porch. So now I just wait and watch. If you're on the road and notice something on your trailer that isn't listed, if it's strapped in tight, sealed, and warm to the touch, don't haul it. It's not freight. It's looking for a ride. I don't take Route 6 anymore. Not after what happened that night. I know every mile of highway between Reno and El Paso like the back of my calloused hand. But Route 6? That stretch is different. It's like the road forgets it belongs to this world. I was hauling refrigeration units, nothing special, when I veered off the main route to shave off 30 minutes. That shortcut. It cost me more than time. The fog rolled in fast. 1 second I was under a clear desert sky, the next swallowed whole by this thick, colorless soup. My headlights barely cut a few feet ahead, and the world went quiet. No coyotes, no wind, not even the hum of tires on asphalt. Just silence. Then I saw it. 2 faint red taillights hovering in the mist like distant eyes. A rig, moving steady. No company logos, no plate, no lights. Just there. I should have pulled over. Waited it out. But in that fog, being alone felt worse than following a ghost. So I followed. The road beneath me didn't feel like road anymore. And the deeper I went, the less I was sure I was even driving forward. That's when everything started to go wrong. It started like any other late run. I'd just topped off at a grimy little gas station off I-95. Lukewarm coffee in one hand, half crushed, burrito in the other. My wife had called me on the CB earlier, checking in before she turned in for the night. We always do that when I'm on the road, little check-ins just to make the miles feel shorter. I remember her laughing about how I always mispronounced chimichanga. It felt normal. Safe. I was making good time too, but I figured I could shave off a bit more by cutting down Route 6. Most truckers avoid it after dark. Too empty, too quiet. But I'd been down it before. Long, straight, lonely. Nothing I hadn't handled. But 20 minutes in, the sky changed. The stars vanished. 1 second they were there, bright, scattered across the black. And the next, it was like someone painted over them. The fog didn't roll in like a normal mist, it just appeared. Dense, pale, silent. My radio crackled, then died. Even my coffee went cold faster than it should have. That's when I should have turned around. Instead, I kept rolling forward, and then I saw it, a rig, just ahead. No headlights, no brake lights, only 2 dull red tail lights glowing through the whiteout. No logos, no chrome, nothing to catch. Just a black shape moving with impossible grace. It didn't swerve, didn't brake, it just glided forward like it was made of smoke. At first I was relieved. Another driver meant I wasn't alone. Maybe he knew the road better than I did. My GPS had gone gray, spinning its little icon like it was chasing its own tail. so I stuck close, matching the rig's speed. 40, then 50, then 60. It didn't slow, didn't acknowledge me. Something felt off, but I couldn't explain it. The mile markers were missing. My dash clock blinked midnight, then jumped to 3:17, then reset again. I tapped it, but it kept slipping, like time didn't want to be measured out there. I tried the CB. Static. Tried honking. Nothing. The rig didn't react. Didn't even flicker. Just led me deeper into that blinding white. And I followed because going back meant facing the fog alone. I don't know how long I followed that rig. Could have been 15 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time had stopped making sense. My dashboard clock blinked nonsense. My watch ticked forward, then back, then forward again. And all the while, the fog just got thicker, heavier, like it had weight. That's when I saw the first sign. Literally. Gas 10 miles. But the letters were reversed, like they were meant to be read in a mirror. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, even leaned forward like that would somehow fix it. But no. Every sign after that was the same. Reversed, faded, almost like they'd been burned into the mist itself. The temperature kept dropping too. In the middle of the Nevada desert in August, my windshield began to frost at the corners. I turned the heat on full blast just to keep my hands from going numb on the wheel. It wasn't right. None of it was. I tried to get the rig's attention again. Flashed my brights, gave 2 long pulls on the horn, even veered slightly to the left to peek at the cab. Nothing. No brake lights, no lane changes, no movement in the mirrors. Just those 2 red dots glowing ahead like eyes in a storm, and the distance between us. Perfect. No matter how fast or slow I went, the rig stayed exactly the same number of feet ahead. Like it wasn't driving at all, just tethered to me. Then came the diner, same one I'd passed way earlier that night. Penny's place. A little silver box on the side of the road with a flickering neon sign and a busted front window, covered in cardboard. But there it was again. Same cracked letters, same toppled open 24 hours board leaning against the dumpster. I slammed the brakes. Tires screamed against pavement that felt too smooth, too clean. I sat there staring at the diner, heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my jaw. I hadn't turned once. No curves, no ramps, just a straight shot. And yet somehow, I was back. The rig kept moving. Didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. Just drifted into the fog like it knew I'd follow. And God help me, I did. I tried the CB again, more out of desperation than hope. This is Freightliner 904. Anyone got eyes on Route 6? Visibility 0 following a rig westbound. Anyone copy? Static hissed back at me, thick and low like breathing. Then, a voice. Faint. Distant. This is Freightliner. Following a rig. Anyone copy? My own words. From earlier. Warped and delayed like the fog was chewing them up and spitting them back. I gripped the wheel tighter. My knuckles cracked. I laid on the brakes hard, pedal to the floor. But the truck didn't stop. Tires squealed. The whole cab shuddered. And yet the scenery kept gliding past like I was on a conveyor belt. Like the road wasn't really there, and then the rig was gone. Just gone. No brake lights. No swerving. No slow fade. One blink, and it had vanished into the fog like it had never existed. The red taillights extinguished, and I was alone. Completely, terrifyingly alone. That's when I started seeing them. First, it was a figure off, to the side of the road, a woman in a long coat, head turned away, unmoving. Then a man, slouched, dragging one leg like it was broken. A kid holding a stuffed bear, soaked and limp, all just standing there, watching. I locked the doors without even thinking. Then came the sounds, a soft tapping on the passenger window. I turned, nothing there. Then a whisper, my name, Abel. I hadn't heard my name all night. Another tap, this time harder. I glanced again. And there, pressed against the glass, was a face. Pale, bloated, eyes milk-white, nose shattered flat. It grinned. Just stayed there, fog clinging to its skin like plastic wrap. I screamed and hit the gas, fishtailing as I tried to tear away from whatever that was. But the road didn't change. No turns, no signs, no towns. Just white. And then I saw the roadkill, something lying in the middle of the lane. I swerved, barely missed it, looked in the mirror and saw a body, not a deer, not a coyote, a man. Face down, arms outstretched. I felt my pulse in my teeth. I started wondering if I was dead already, and if this road was where people like me went when they didn't realize it yet. I couldn't take it anymore. The cab felt like a coffin, and every breath I took felt thinner than the last. I killed the engine and stepped out, boots landing hard on pavement that didn't even echo. The fog wrapped around me like wet wool, swallowing up sound and light with every step. I walked blind, hands out, straining to hear anything other than the pounding of my own heart. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a gas station, another driver, something human. But what I found were tire tracks. Mine, deep grooves, looping, back on themselves in a perfect circle over and over, like I'd been driving in place for hours. But I hadn't turned the wheel once. That's when I saw it. A rig, just off the shoulder, half sunk in the ditch. Same model as mine. Same chipped paint, same little dent on the rear door. I stepped closer, squinting through the mist. It was my truck, but old, rusted through. Windows caked in grime, tires deflated and rotted to the rim. Dust covered everything like it had been sitting there for decades. My throat went dry. I climbed up and opened the door. The smell of mildew and rot hit me like a fist. I leaned in, same pine tree air freshener dangling from the mirror, brown, with age. The seat cushions were shredded. A logbook sat open on the dash, pages yellowed and curling. I flipped through it, and my blood turned cold. It was my handwriting. The notes matched my current run. Same route, same cargo. But the last, date listed June 12, 1987. I wasn't even born in 87. I backed out, heart thundering, stumbling onto the cracked pavement. My CB crackled on even though my engine was off, even though the power was dead. "This is Freightliner 904, the voice croaked through. "Anyone? Copy? Following a rig westbound. Visibility 0. It was me, my voice, saying the same words I'd said an hour ago. I stared into the fog, into nothing. My own voice kept looping, breaking, warping, until it wasn't mine anymore. It was deeper, wrong, and it was coming closer. That was when I realized I might not be alone on this road, but I sure as hell wasn't alive either. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. My hands gripped the wheel like I'd never let go. Outside the windshield, the fog was gone. Just golden morning light breaking over the desert, casting long shadows across the lot. Birds chirped. Distant cars hummed down the highway. A knock on my window made me jump. Another trucker stood there, cup of coffee in hand, looking concerned. "You good, man? You've been parked here all night." I nodded, barely able to speak. My GPS had a signal again, green, strong, pointing north. Everything looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. I looked in the rearview mirror, and there it was, the rig. Same shape, same tail lights, pulling out slow from the far end of the lot. No license plate, no markings, just moving with that same impossible glide. I looked around. The diner's sign creaked in the breeze. Fog's End. I didn't follow. I never will again. But some nights, when the mist rolls in thick and my eyes blur from too many miles, I see it. Just ahead. Waiting. And sometimes, I hear my own voice on the CB, so if you ever see a rig like that, don't follow it. Whatever's on the other side ain't meant for us. I haven't touched my CB radio in over a year, not since I heard Cole's voice, and Cole's been dead for 5. We used to talk on Channel 19 every night during long hauls, Me and him keeping each other sane somewhere between Arizona dust and Nevada stars. His rig rolled off an overpass during a midnight thunderstorm, called out for help till the signal died. I was the last one who heard him. After that, the channel stayed dead quiet, like the road itself was holding its breath. Until last year, was heading west, hauling a load through the heart of the desert. Late, dry, empty. Not a single headlight for miles. CB was on, but silent like usual. Then, clear as day, my speaker crackled. "Breaker, this is Redtail. I'm off the road. Can anyone hear me?" My blood went cold. Redtail. That was Cole's handle. I stared at the mic, heart hammering, trying to convince myself it was a freak signal bounce. Some old recording caught in the clouds. But the static gave way again. "Abel. You copy?" That was my name, and it wasn't a recording. It was Cole. Same voice I heard the night he died, calling from somewhere he shouldn't be. It happened 5 years ago, almost to the day. Cole was running a solo haul through New Mexico, somewhere along Highway 191. I remember the storm rolling in. Violent, fast, the kind that eats headlights whole. He called me around midnight. His voice was tight, trying to stay calm, but I could hear it behind the words something was wrong. "Breaker, this is Redtail. I'm off the road. Can anyone hear me?" I answered immediately. "Copy that, Redtail. What's your 20? Static. Then a muffled breath. "I think I hit black ice. I'm in the ditch. Can't move my leg." "He never," screamed. Cole wasn't the type, but I could hear the pain in his silence. He kept trying to describe his location, but the signal kept breaking. Last thing I heard was, "Tell Sarah I tried to call." His wife. They found his truck 2 days later, twisted beneath an overpass, cab crushed, CB mic still clutched in his hand. After that, I kept Channel 19 open every night just in case. But there was never another sound. No calls. No chatter. Like the frequency had died with him. That's what makes last year so damn terrifying. Because when that voice crackled through the speaker, it wasn't just familiar, it was identical. Same phrasing, same hesitation between words. Word for word, it was exactly what he said the night he crashed. "Breaker. This is Redtail. I'm off the road. Can anyone hear me?" I sat there in the cab, frozen. Every hair on my body stood on end. I whispered his name, like maybe he'd answer, but he didn't. The message just looped again, crackling like wind in a tunnel. Over and over. Some part of me wanted to believe it was a prank, a hijacked frequency. But truckers don't do that. Not with final calls. CB radios are sacred out here, especially in dead zones. They're our lifelines, our voices in the dark. You don't mess with that. And yet, there it was. Cole's last words bleeding through the speakers like they'd been trapped in the static all these years, waiting for someone to hear them again. I told myself it had to be a freak bounce, some weird atmospheric quirk picking up an old signal. Desert air does strange things at night, but I still reached for the dial, hand trembling, and scanned through every channel one by one. Dead silence. Nothing on 17. Nothing on 21. Nothing on 9. Not even chatter from the emergency bands. Just wind and static. I flipped back to 19, and there it was. "Breaker, this is Redtail. I'm off the road." Same tone, same rasp, same unbearable familiarity. I turned the volume down, trying to focus on the road, but the voice kept bleeding through, like it was leaking into the cab itself, vibrating in my bones. And then, it changed. Passing mile marker 142. Billboard's half gone. "You see that, Abel?" I nearly swerved. My eyes shot to the side of the highway, and sure enough, there it was. Mile marker 142. Right after it, a mangled billboard with only the word diner still visible in peeling red letters. I hadn't told anyone where I was. GPS was off. I was running dark. "Abel." The voice croaked again. "You just passed. That old gas station and the one with the payphone, remember? I did. I'd stopped there hours ago for a piss break. The payphone was rusted out and covered in spider webs. No way anyone could have known that unless they'd been watching. My hands were slick on the wheel. I gripped tighter, heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my ears. This wasn't a recording. This wasn't a prank. It was now. Whoever, whatever, was speaking through that CB wasn't replaying Cole's last words. It was speaking to me, seeing what I saw, following where I went. I shut the radio off, yanked the cord right out of the console. The voice kept going. "Don't leave me out here, man. It's cold. I don't know where I am." I looked at the dark horizon, at the endless stretch of empty blacktop. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone on the road. I felt hunted. The highway started changing. It was subtle at first, the way the white lines blurred under my headlights like they were shifting slightly left then right like the road was breathing. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, convinced it was just exhaustion playing tricks. But then the fog rolled in, thick, sudden, like someone dropped a curtain in front of me. One moment stars stretched across the sky, the next, nothing. No horizon, no moon, just a wall of pale gray swallowing everything. I floored the defroster, but the fog wasn't on the windshield. It was inside the light. Every beam from my high beams got eaten alive, and then the voice returned. Not through the CB. I'd already ripped that out, tossed the cord across the passenger seat. But now it came from the truck's internal speakers, the ones I used for music and GPS. "Abel," it rasped. I never made it out of the ditch. My stomach dropped. That wasn't part of the old call. That was new. A fresh plea. "You said you'd find me. You said you'd stay on the line." I slammed my hand against the dash, screamed, for it to stop. But the voice just grew louder, layered with static, sorrow, and something that sounded like freezing wind. "It's cold," it said again. "I can't feel my hands." The guilt hit me like a freight train. I hadn't been able to help him. I was the last voice he heard, and I failed. Maybe this was my punishment, hearing his final moments over and over until I snapped. But this wasn't just memory. This was now. I gritted my teeth, flicked on my hazards, and pulled a hard U-turn across the empty highway, tires screeching through the fog. The trailer groaned behind me, fighting the shift. I didn't care. I was going, back to that overpass where Cole's rig went off the side, where they pulled his body out 2 days too late. Maybe I was losing it, maybe grief was cracking open old wounds, but I had to know. Had to see if someone was still there. Because if Cole was still calling for help after all these years, then maybe he'd never really left. Reached the overpass just before dawn. The fog had thinned, but the air still carried a strange weight, like the silence was holding its breath. I pulled off onto the shoulder, engine idling low, and stared down the slope where Cole's rig had gone off. But there was nothing. No wreckage. No twisted guardrail. No patch of scorched earth or skid marks burned into the pavement. Just flat, empty desert. Even the memorial cross someone had planted months after the crash was gone. Like the accident had never happened. I killed the engine and stepped out. The quiet was unnatural. Not peaceful, empty. No wind. No birds. Just me, gravel crunching under my boots. I walked to the edge and peered down into the ditch. That's when the CB sparked to life. By itself. "Abel." Cole's voice weak now. Tired. Like it was unraveling. "You said you'd stay with me." I moved down the slope, flashlight cutting across the weeds and rocks, heart pounding. I don't know what I was looking for. Proof. Closure. Maybe a ghost. Then I saw it. A fragment of side mirror, half buried in the dirt. Cracked. Stained with something dark. I knelt beside it, and next to it, an old CB mic, sun-bleached and rotted at the cord. Frayed like it had been there for years. I reached out, hand trembling, and touched it. Everything changed. The air turned icy. The light shifted, and I wasn't in the desert anymore. I saw the cab from the inside, Cole's hands shaking as he gripped the wheel, blood pouring down his temple, Rain pelting the glass, the CB mic pressed to his lips. Breaker. This is Redtail. Then the screech. The wheel spinning. The flash of headlights in the mirror. The overpass looming. And the impact. I felt it. The crunch. The weight. The sudden, unbearable cold. Then nothing. Just silence. And when I blinked again, I was back in the ditch, crouched in the dirt, hand still on the mic. The fog was gone. The sun was rising. The CB was quiet. But I knew what I saw. That night didn't just haunt me. It held him. And maybe he was still waiting for someone to answer. I woke up in the cab, slumped over the wheel, the engine dead. Dawn was creeping over, the horizon, bleeding soft gold across the desert floor. For a second I thought maybe I'd imagined it all, a vivid nightmare brought on by too many hours behind the wheel and not enough sleep. Then I saw the CB radio. It sat on the passenger seat, perfectly intact. No frayed wires, no cracks, no sign I'd ever ripped it out. Just sitting there, quiet, clean waiting. I turned the key. The engine coughed once, then rumbled back to life like nothing had happened. GPS was back. Fog was gone. Road ahead, wide open. But something was different. I felt it in the air, in my bones. I haven't talked on Channel 19 since, haven't dared. But now and then when I'm driving those long, silent stretches between towns, when the dark gets real thick and the road starts to feel too quiet, I hear it again. A whisper. 2 words. Turn back. So if you're ever out there running solo in the middle of nowhere and you hear a voice that shouldn't be there, don't answer it. Some messages aren't meant to be heard by the living. If you ever pull into Rest Stop 58 off Route 15 and see every cab with the curtains drawn, keep driving. Doesn't matter how tired you are. Doesn't matter if your eyelids are drooping and your back's screaming. Push through. Because once you step out, it notices you. I learned that the hard way. It was just after 2 in the morning. I'd been running 16 hours straight, trying to beat a deadline out of Reno. I'd passed up 2 decent pull-offs already. Figured I could hold out for a real rest stop. When I saw the green glow of that rest area 1 mile sign, I sighed like it was salvation. Pulled in, killed the engine, and that's when it hit me. Every truck was parked perfectly, lined up like a row of sleeping giants. But not a soul was moving, no footsteps, no engines idling. Not even someone grabbing a smoke, just silence. Total, unnatural silence. I waved at one of the rigs, saw movement behind the glass. Someone was in there, just not coming out. None of them were. I should have trusted my gut, but I stayed. Just for a few hours, I told myself. That was my first mistake. And definitely not the last. I was running on fumes, mentally more than mechanically. The kind of tired that makes the road blur into a single gray ribbon, and your thoughts start sounding like whispers in the back of your skull. I'd already pushed past the usual pull-offs, thinking maybe there'd be a diner where I could grab some burnt coffee and catch 20 minutes in the lot. But the desert stretches on forever out here, and the next fuel stop was another 60 miles. When that rest area sign came up, it felt like mercy. I don't even remember turning in, just the sudden shift from endless blacktop to a wide, cracked parking lot lit by half-dead sodium lights. I parked at the far end and turned off the engine. That's when I noticed how still everything was. Rows of trucks sat lined up too neatly. Not a single one crooked, not a bumper out of place, just parked. Like they'd been positioned there by hand. No engine noise, no humming generators, not even the gentle sway of a running AC unit. The diner next to the lot was dark. No lights. Inside. No glow of vending machines. Just a dim neon sign above the entrance. Rest Stop 58, flickering like it was on its last breath. I saw a guy sitting behind the wheel of a Peterbilt 3 spaces over. He was just sitting there staring out the windshield, hands on the wheel. I gave a quick wave. Nothing. No nod. No flick of the lights, not even a glance. Just frozen, like a mannequin propped up in the driver's seat. I scanned the other cabs, curtains drawn, windows dark. Every single one. It didn't feel like night. It felt like something had paused the world. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone was probably asleep, that was all. Long hauls wear you down. But still, I couldn't shake it. The kind of silence out there wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that makes your spine itch. The kind that suggests something's waiting. I told myself I'd just rest my eyes for a bit. Get back on the road by 3. I didn't know yet what I'd parked next to, but I was about to find out. I climbed into the sleeper, kicked my boots off, and shut the curtain. Tried to convince myself the unease was just road fatigue. Desert night. Dead rest stop, nothing to worry about. But I couldn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it. That prickling sense, like eyes on my back. I kept turning over, fluffing the same flat pillow, listening to the silence press, and from all sides. Then the CB cracked, just once. A short burst of static, sharp, glitchy, like a sentence cut in half and buried underwater. I reached up and switched it off. No one uses CB at night out here unless it's important, and I wasn't in the mood for ghost noise. A few minutes later, I saw the first flash. Headlights. One rig, 3 spots down. Quick pulse. On, off, on again. Then another, opposite side of the lot, same pattern. Then a third. My heart started pounding. It wasn't random. The flashes were timed, almost, like they were trying to signal something, Morse code, a warning, I wasn't sure. I reached up and flicked my own brights once, waited, nothing. And then, I saw it. Movement. A figure darted between the trailers across the row. Tall, too tall, slender but fast and wrong. It didn't move like a person. Its limbs seemed too long, arms bending at angles that made my stomach turn. I leaned forward to get a better look, but it vanished behind the trailers before I could process what I'd seen. That's when my instincts screamed. Not a single cab door opened. Not one. Not even the guy I'd waved at earlier. They all stayed locked in their trucks, curtains tight, lights off. They'd seen it before. They knew better. I should have done the same. Should have turned the key and hauled ass out of there. But I didn't. I just sat there, frozen behind the wheel, breath fogging up the glass, trying to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, a coyote maybe. Shadows playing games. Anything but what I knew I saw. The rigs around me stayed still, silent. They knew something I didn't, and I was still outside that knowledge. For now, I should have stayed inside. But when the flashes stopped, and the figure disappeared, something in me cracked. I told myself maybe someone was hurt. Maybe it was just some dumb prank and I'd laugh about it later. Anything to justify the pit in my stomach. I grabbed my flashlight, cracked the door, and stepped out. The second my boots hit the pavement, I felt it. Like stepping into another layer of night. Colder. Thicker. The kind of air that sticks to your skin like damp cloth. Even the stars looked different. Duller. Further away. Then came the whispers. Not words, not even voices. Just sounds, soft and slithering like insects learning to speak. They floated on the air just low enough to make me doubt I'd heard anything at all. I walked toward the nearest rig and raised a hand to knock, but before I could touch it, I saw movement inside. The driver. He was awake, staring at me from behind the curtain, eyes wide, face pale as paper. He didn't wave, didn't speak, just slowly shook his head. Once. Firm. Don't. That was the message. I stepped back. That's when I heard it. Something scuttling beneath the trailers. Not footsteps, not paws. Something with too many legs dragging something heavy. I swung the flashlight under the trucks, but it was gone. Just shadows and gravel. The sound circled me, weaving through the lot like it was hunting. Watching, curious. I wanted to call out, ask if anyone else was hearing this, but my throat locked up. Fear doesn't always shout, it sometimes freezes, and I was frozen solid. Then I saw the curtain in another rig twitch, another driver peeking out, face drenched in sweat. Same expression, same fear, same silence. I wasn't alone, but I was, exposed. And whatever was out there, it knew I'd stepped outside. Knew I wasn't protected by metal or locks or glass. The shadows deepened around the rigs. The air pulsed like something enormous was breathing underneath the pavement. I turned, trying to head back toward my cab, and that's when I felt it. The ground wasn't still anymore, and I wasn't the hunter on this road. I was prey. I bolted. Didn't wait to understand what I'd heard, didn't look back, just ran, boots slamming against the pavement, flashlight beam shaking like a heartbeat. My cab was maybe 30 feet away, but it felt like a mile. The lot stretched, warped, like the dark itself didn't want me to leave. I was 10 feet out when something caught my ankle. Not a claw, not a rope, a hand. Then another. Then dozens of them, gray, cold, slick with something I couldn't name, bursting out from beneath the trailer beside me. They latched onto my boots, my jeans, my calf. Thin fingers, calloused palms, nails chewed to the quick. They didn't claw or tear, they held, gripping like they were trying to pull me back underground with them. I screamed, kicked, slammed the flashlight down until I heard a crunch. My leg came free and I scrambled to my feet, half crawling, half sprinting toward the cab, wrenched the door open and hurled myself inside, slamming it shut behind me and locking every latch with shaking fingers. Silence. No pounding, no chasing. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw them. Faces. Pale. Terrified. Every driver in those other rigs watching from behind their curtains. Not one made a move. Not one reached for their mic. Their fear was too deep. Too old. The CB flickered on, even though I hadn't touched it. Static. Then a low voice, barely audible. Don't leave. The truck. Don't answer it. That was all. Then nothing. I sat there the rest of the night, eyes fixed on the windshield, door locked, engine off, afraid to even breathe too loud. Every so often, I heard the whispers again, circling, testing, waiting. Something brushed against the tires once. Something else tapped lightly on the window, too high to be human. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. By the time the sky started lightening, the whispers were gone. The scuttling faded, and the lot began to stir, not with relief, but with quiet resignation. Engines rumbled back to life. Curtains opened, doors unlocked, but no one looked at me. No one said a word. We all just drove off like nothing had happened, like it was just another night on the road. As the sun crept over the horizon, the rest stop came, alive like nothing had ever happened. Engines turned over one by one. Drivers pulled out slow, merging back onto Route 15 like they were just starting their day. No one spoke, no one waved, not even a nod. Every rig pulled away in complete silence like they were trying to outrun the memory of what we'd seen. Or what we hadn't. I didn't waste time. I fired up the engine and followed, eyes darting to every shadow in the mirrors. The lot grew smaller in the distance, but that feeling, that presence, stuck with me. Still does. About 20 miles out, I saw another truck heading in the opposite direction. New rig, clean cab, young guy behind the wheel probably thinking. He'd found the perfect place to catch some shut-eye. I flashed my lights once, twice, long pause. He didn't react. Just kept driving. Maybe he didn't know what it meant, or maybe it was already too late. So I'm telling you now, loud and clear, if you ever see a rest stop full of silent trucks and not a single soul outside, keep moving. Because whatever's out there, it only hunts the ones who do. I found my mentor's rig still running on the shoulder, door wide open. But he was gone. Just gone. No signs of struggle. No blood. No busted glass. Just the low idle of the engine and the sound of wind scraping across the cab like fingers trying to get in. It was after midnight on Route 15. I'd been pushing through a tight run when I decided to check on him. Jesse hadn't answered his CB in hours. That wasn't like him. He always kept the line open, even if it was just to rant about bad coffee or the price of diesel. But that night, silence. I traced his route, hoping I'd find him at a truck stop or pulled over for a nap. Instead, I found his rig parked on the shoulder, lights still on, hazards flashing slow and steady like a heartbeat. The door swung in the wind. His thermos lay on the step, coffee still steaming in the cold night air. Everyone knew that stretch of highway was strange. Jesse even joked about it, said the fog there had teeth. I thought it was just an old trucker myth until the night I realized something out there takes. And it doesn't always leave a mess. Jesse wasn't just a mentor. He was the reason I stuck with trucking after my first breakdown nearly made me quit. I'd been stranded outside Barstow, green as hell, panicking over a blown airline, when he pulled up in that beat-up red Kenworth and fixed it like it was nothing. Bought me a burger after too. From then on, he took me under his wing, called me rookie even after I'd been on the road 2 years, said I drove too clean to be taken seriously. He was old school. Paper logs, black coffee, zero patience for GPS. The road tells you what you need to know, he'd say. And sometimes, he'd talk about things he'd seen. Mostly in that stretch between Ash Fork and Peach Springs. He called it mile marker 0. Said the signs there never stayed in the same place. That CB signals got scrambled and sometimes you'd hear your own voice calling back. I thought it was just ghost story. Fuel. A way to mess with the rookie. Then one night last fall, Jesse went quiet. He'd been hauling a partial load westbound. Routine stuff. We checked in that morning, joked about meeting up for breakfast in Flagstaff. By midnight, he still hadn't pinged me back. No updates. No answer on the CB. That was the first time I felt that gut-deep cold. I called dispatch. They hadn't heard from him either. No GPS signal. Just gone. I waited another hour, then made a call I'd never made before. I turned off my assigned route and followed his. It didn't take long to find the rig. I spotted it just after a blind curve, parked, half off the shoulder like he'd pulled over in a hurry, hazards blinking, hood intact, no tire marks. The trailer door was still sealed. The cab light was on, driver's side door swinging wide like it had been opened fast and left to hang. I pulled in behind him, cut the engine, and just sat there. Something was off. Too still. Too quiet. Jesse hated the cold. He never left that truck without his jacket, but it was still hanging on the seat. Keys in the ignition. CB still live. And Jesse was nowhere. I climbed up into the cab, calling his name like maybe he'd pop up from the sleeper and say this was all some twisted joke. But there was nothing. Just the low hum of the idling engine and the faint smell of Jesse's aftershave lingering in the air. His thermos was in the cup holder, lid off, coffee still warm. Seat cushion still warm too, like he'd been there just minutes ago. But he wasn't. I checked the GPS, blank screen. No map, no signal. Just a blinking cursor stuck in place like the system couldn't decide where we were. I reached for the CB, maybe out of habit, maybe hope. Before I could even key the mic, it crackled to life on its own. Jesse's voice, distorted, looping. It's not a tunnel, it's a mouth. It's not a tunnel, it's a mouth. It repeated again and again. Each time his voice sounded further away, like it was being pulled underwater. I shut it off. The engine coughed. Once, twice, then sputtered like it was choking. The dashboard lights dimmed for a second. I froze, hand on the ignition, heart thudding so loud it drowned out everything else. Then I felt it. That thing you can't name but always recognize, the weight of being watched. Not by a person, by something else. Something low and patient. Turned and looked out the passenger window. That's when I saw it. Movement in the trees. Just past the tree line, maybe 30 yards out, something was shifting. Not walking, not running, just moving, slow and deliberate between the gaps in the trunks. Could have been a deer, could have been a trick of the light. But then I opened the door and stepped down. That's when I noticed the footprints, barefoot, leading away from the cab. Through the gravel, Across the dirt, into the woods, no socks, no shoes, just a trail of human-sized prints heading straight into that dark, thick line of trees like whoever made them didn't feel the cold at all. I followed them with my eyes, until the last one disappeared into shadow. I didn't want to believe they were Jesse's, but my gut told me they were, and my gut's never been wrong. I followed the prints, each one pressed deep into the frostbitten dirt, still fresh. No sign of struggle, no drag marks, just barefoot steps walking calm and straight into the woods like Jesse had decided to take a midnight stroll into nowhere. My breath puffed in front of me, and every few seconds I'd glance back to make sure I could still see the glow of the rig's headlights. They got smaller the deeper I went, fainter. The trees closed in fast, thick pines and skeletal branches that clawed at my jacket. But then suddenly they stopped, opened up, and that's when I saw it. A road. Not a Forest Service trail or a logging route, this was paved. Old blacktop, cracked and half swallowed by moss and roots, like it hadn't been driven on in decades. But I swear to God it was humming. A low vibration that buzzed through my boots and settled in my bones. Then I heard him. Rookie. Faint. Hoarse. Jesse's voice, calling from somewhere ahead. I stepped onto the road. The air shifted immediately, heavier, harder to breathe, like the space itself didn't want me there. The asphalt pulsed faintly beneath my feet. That's when the road began to change. The cracks twisted into strange patterns, symbols I didn't recognize. Arcs, spirals, jagged lines that looked burned in. Some of them shimmered faintly, like wet ink. And further ahead, the edge of the road split wide into something I can only describe as teeth. Grooves lined the edges like a gaping jaw waiting to close. Then I saw it. Jesse's jacket, crumpled near the edge of that thing. The denim, torn at the shoulder, and next to it, a smear of blood. Fresh, bright red against black pavement glistening in the cold light. The trail led right into the crevice. A dark, jagged opening like the earth had cracked open and hadn't stopped falling. Rookie. Jesse's voice echoed again, this time softer, closer. I took one more step forward, staring into that impossible mouth, and I swear I could feel it breathing, whatever this place was. It wasn't natural, and Jesse had gone in. I don't know what made me step inside. Curiosity? Guilt? The sound of Jesse's voice echoing from that dark mouth in the earth? Whatever it was, it pulled me forward like a hook in my chest. I stepped past the edge, and the temperature dropped instantly. The road above vanished behind me, swallowed in shadow, and I was standing in a tunnel of black rock and twisted metal, like something had chewed through a freeway and spit out the bones. The walls shimmered, slick with oil or maybe blood. I didn't want to know. Pipes jutted out at odd angles. Wiring hung like spiderwebs, twitching with static. Then the CB in my pocket crackled. Jesse's voice came through, but this time, calm, almost gentle. It feeds on the lonely rookie. That's why it takes truckers. We're always alone. I moved deeper, flashlight beam flickering. That's when I found it. A logbook. Old, leather-bound, soaked through with something dark. I opened it, flipping through brittle pages. There were names, dozens of them. All truckers. All vanished. Jesse's name was near the bottom. His last entry was one sentence. I heard my own voice before it took me. Then I saw the faces, etched into the rock like fossils, but they were moving, eyes fluttering, mouths twitching. One blinked. Another tried to speak. They were still alive, trapped, half-formed in the walls like they'd been melted into the stone. I stumbled back, nearly dropped the logbook, and then the tunnel pulsed. A wave of air pushed against me, hot and rancid. The walls convulsed, and something deep within the passage began to move. Heavy, slow, dragging itself forward. I turned and ran, slipping on the wet floor, slamming shoulder first into jagged stone, barely holding onto the flashlight. The tunnel groaned behind me, closing like a throat. I hit the surface, gasping, clawing at the dirt, Jesse's voice still ringing in my ears. It feeds on the lonely. I sprinted through the trees back toward the rig, lungs on fire. Behind me, I heard branches snapping. Something was following. Something that didn't walk, but slid. Like it had no legs at all. I made it to the truck, slammed the door shut, and peeled out. But I swear, I didn't leave alone. I never told anyone what I saw. Not the company. Not Jesse's family. Not even the cops who ruled it a runaway case when no body turned up. Sometimes these old boys just snap, they said. Drive till they disappear. I nodded, agreed, signed the papers, but I knew better. I kept the logbook, wrapped it in plastic and buried it deep in the sleeper behind my gear. I've never opened it again. Don't need to. I still remember every page. Some nights when I park along a dead stretch of highway and kill the engine, I hear it. That voice on the CB, faint but familiar. It's not a tunnel, it's a mouth, and I feel it watching. That stretch between Ash Fork and Peach Springs, I don't drive it anymore, not even in daylight. I don't care if it adds 5 hours to my run. I won't go near it. Because Jesse was right. It feeds on the lonely, and it doesn't always leave teeth marks. So if you're ever driving through the desert at night, and your CB starts picking up whispers that sound like your own voice, or someone you thought was gone, don't stop. Some exits don't lead anywhere human. I've hauled a lot of things in my years on the road. Cars, lumber, even livestock once, but nothing like this. I knew it the moment I hooked that trailer. Something was off. It felt too heavy. Not just physically, like weight on my rig, but something deeper, like the damn thing was dragging my soul behind it. Dispatcher gave me no details, just coordinates, a sealed unit, and a payout that made me suspicious. I should have walked away. God, I should have walked. I remember the silence when I pulled onto the highway. No music, no chatter on the CB, just the hum of tires and the occasional creak of metal. Then the first sound. A thud, sharp and deliberate, like something inside, shifted. It wasn't cargo shifting on a turn. It was centered, intentional. I told myself it was just my mind playing games. Night driving will do that to you. But I couldn't shake it. Then the whispering started, barely audible just under the static of the radio, like voices traveling with me. I tried turning it off. Didn't help. That trailer, whatever was inside it, didn't want to be moved. And I was the idiot dragging it across the country. It started 3 nights before the incident. The night I picked up the load, I was low on cash, behind on bills, and desperate for a run that paid fast. That's when I got the call. No name on the caller ID, just a raspy voice offering $5,000 for a single haul. No paperwork, no inspection. All I had to do was pick up a trailer from an old warehouse off Highway 7 and drive it 600 miles north. No questions asked. You want it or not? The voice barked. I hesitated, but $5,000 was $5,000. I took the job. The warehouse was dead quiet when I arrived. Fenced off, no lights, no guards. Just this massive black trailer sitting like a tombstone in the middle of the lot. No markings, no serials, just matte steel and thick chains wrapped around the doors. I backed up slowly, tires crunching gravel, and as I locked onto the hitch, I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Cold air spilled out from underneath, brushing against my legs like icy fingers. I climbed into the cab, heart pounding. My gut screamed at me to leave it there, but I turned the ignition anyway. Headlights cut through the dark as I pulled away from the warehouse. That's when I saw it. In the mirror, just for a second, I caught a figure standing behind the trailer. Pale face, no eyes, just staring. And then, gone. I slammed the brakes, jumped out, scanned the lot. Nothing. Not a soul in sight. I told myself it was a reflection. A shadow, a trick of the light, anything to make it normal. I even laughed a little to shake it off, but as I climbed back in and shut the door, I could still feel the cold. And something else. The trailer's weight pressing harder than it should have, like it didn't want to move. like it was resisting me. The route was burned into my GPS, and once I hit the road, I told myself I'd finish the run, get paid, and forget it ever happened. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't going to be just another haul. The client insisted I take the back roads, no highways, no way stations, said it was safer that way. Safer for who, I wondered as I crawled through the pitch-black maze of two-lane roads that cut through forgotten towns and endless woods. The GPS kept rerouting, and each new path felt more isolated than the last. No other trucks, no signs of life, just darkness stretching for miles in every direction. About an hour in, I started noticing it, the way the truck leaned. Not just from the weight, but like it shifted unnaturally, pulling me slightly to the right on turns, almost like the trailer wanted to veer off the road. I tightened my grip on the wheel, fighting against it. At one point, I even checked my air suspension, thinking something was off, but everything was reading normal. Then the CB crackled to life. I hadn't touched the radio. No one's on this late out here, but through the static I heard it. My name. Twice. Abdullah. Abdullah. Drawn out, distorted, like someone trying to speak underwater. I snatched the mic and called back. No answer. Just more static, and then a faint, horrible laugh that I felt deep in my chest. Then came the thump from the trailer, sharp and deliberate. Not a bounce or jostle, but a solid knock, like a fist hitting metal. I pulled over, engine idling. The road was silent, lined with dense trees that swallowed my headlights. I circled back, flashlight in hand, and aimed it at the rear doors. The bolt was sealed shut with reinforced locks I hadn't noticed earlier. Industrial grade. Fresh welds. There was no way anything inside could get out, and yet I felt watched. I made it to a roadside truck stop just before 2 a.m., the kind of place where the coffee's stale and the guy behind the counter has seen everything twice. I grabbed a cup and asked if he'd ever heard weird stories about hauls around here. He looked up slowly. "You on a silent run?" he asked, voice low. "No company markings, sealed doors. Odd weight?" I nodded. He leaned in. "You might be dragging one of them." "One of what?" "Haunted hauls," he whispered. "Not all cargo's meant to be delivered." I didn't sleep that night. By the next night, it felt like the truck wasn't entirely mine anymore. The steering grew twitchy. I'd grip the yaw, wheel going straight, and out of nowhere the rig would jerk, like someone else tugged it. At first, I blamed the road conditions or fatigue, but then it started happening on flat stretches with no wind, no bumps. I tried adjusting the alignment. Nothing changed. It kept pulling, always toward the woods. Then the GPS started acting up. The route I'd locked in since the beginning. Gone. Replaced with a blinking path leading to some place called Dry Hollow. I don't remember ever typing it in. I tried resetting the system, but it kept reloading the same route. I figured I'd follow it just long enough to get to the next stop and fix things. But Dry Hollow wasn't a town. Not really. It was a cluster of rotting buildings, barely lit by dying street lamps. Gas pumps rusted out, windows boarded, dead silence, not even crickets. And then I saw them. Figures along the edge of the road. Just standing. Watching. As I drove past, they didn't move. Didn't blink. Just faded into the trees like smoke. That night I parked at a rest area and tried to sleep in the cab. But every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of the trailer. Inside, darkness. And in that darkness, a woman screaming. Over and over. Like she was trapped in there begging me to stop the truck. I jolted awake, drenched in sweat, only to hear faint knocking again. Same rhythm, same pressure. I snapped. I pulled off at an empty lot, slammed the brakes, and ran to the back. Tried to unhitch the trailer, but the coupling was locked solid, fused. Like the rig and the trailer had melted together. I yanked, cursed, kicked at it. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. Later that night, I tried reaching out to other truckers on the CB. Silence. When I did pass one on the road, he flipped off his lights and sped past me like I was contagious. Like he didn't want to be anywhere near me. At that point, I realized something chilling. I wasn't hauling this thing anymore, it was hauling me. I reached the final waypoint just before dawn, miles off any main road tucked along the edge of a canyon that dropped into black nothing. No buildings, no signs, just gravel, wind, and the distant sound of water below. The GPS beeped once, then went dead. No cell service, no radio, nothing but me and the trailer. I waited. 30 minutes, then an hour. No headlights coming down the road. No figures stepping out of the trees. Just that growing sense that I hadn't been sent to deliver anything. I was the one being delivered. I climbed down, walked around the rig. The locks that had been fused shut. Gone. Just dangling chains now. The doors stood still, slightly ajar, as if inviting me. I should have turned and left, but curiosity, or maybe something else, pulled me forward. The air inside was freezing. Not like a freezer, but like stepping into a tomb. I shined my flashlight, expecting crates or machinery, anything. But it was empty. Just a long metal box echoing with a soft, constant whisper, like hundreds of voices talking over each other. Then the walls began to move. Not physically, more like memories etched into the steel, flickering images. I saw a man in the driver's seat, crying, shaking, then gone. A woman pounding from inside, screaming until her voice cracked. A kid, no older than 12, curled up in the corner, whispering prayers. And then, me. My own face, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream, pressed against the very walls I stood inside. I stumbled back, heart pounding, breath fogging in the air. That's when I saw him, outside the trailer, watching from the tree line. The dispatcher. Same coat, same posture, but his face, and it wasn't right. It blurred, like static on a screen, shifting too fast to recognize. He didn't move. Just stared, like he was waiting for something. And then the doors slammed shut behind me. But I wasn't locked in. I was still standing in the doorway, the wind howling past. When I turned around, nothing. No images. No whispers. Just the quiet hum of an empty trailer. Only it wasn't empty. Not really. I had seen what it wanted me to see because it wasn't done with me yet. I don't know where I am now. Could be a hospital. Could be hell. They don't tell me much, just give me pills and ask the same questions over and over. What was in the trailer? Why didn't you refuse the job? Why do you keep looking over your shoulder? I tell them the same thing every time. It wasn't about what was in the trailer. It was about who it takes. Some nights I still hear it. The thumping, the whispers through the vents. I haven't touched a truck in months, but I can feel it, like that cursed thing is still hitched to my spine, dragging behind me wherever I go. I dream of the road, endless back roads, and that GPS, always blinking, always rerouting to places that don't exist. They say the trailer vanished after I left. That's not true. It's still out there, waiting. So if you're ever offered a silent haul, sealed trailer, no paperwork, big payout, walk away. No matter how broke you are, no matter how desperate, because once you hook it, it hooks you, and it doesn't let go. Not ever. You ever take a route so strange it makes you question if you ever came back the same? That was me. Driving solo through the Rockies one night, normal delivery, decent pay, no reason to think twice. But something happened up there. Something I still can't explain, no matter how many times I try to make sense of it. The road didn't just bend, it shifted. Time stretched, memories twisted. I'd swear I saw pieces of my past and future bleeding together like oil on water. I'm not talking about fatigue. This wasn't sleep deprivation or some trucker ghost story passed around at rest stops. This was real. At least, I think it was. The worst part is how quickly it started to feel normal, like my brain was rewriting itself to fit the new rules. I stopped asking what was happening and started accepting it. That's when I knew I was in trouble. People think the Rockies are just mountains, but there are places up there. Back roads that don't show up on GPS, tunnels that lead nowhere, signs that change when you look again. If you ever find yourself rerouted through those hills, Don't follow. Because once reality breaks, you don't always get to put it back. It was a standard overnight run to Denver. Freight company called me last minute, said the regular guy bailed and they needed someone who wouldn't ask questions. I didn't care. I'd done 100 runs, through the Rockies before, snow chains in the back, full tank, thermos of coffee, and I was rolling before sunset. The air gets thinner the higher you go, but I've always liked it. Quiet, clean, untouched. About 3 hours in, traffic came to a standstill near Bear Claw. Pass Rockslide had buried a quarter-mile of Route 70. Cops were turning trucks around, pointing us toward some detour I'd never heard of. No signage, just orange cones and a hand-painted board that read, "Old Quarry Route. Use with caution." I should have turned back, should have waited it out. But I was behind on rent and the clock was ticking. So I took the detour. The road narrowed almost immediately. One lane, no shoulder, just a winding climb into the hills with only my headlights slicing through the black. Trees pressed in like walls, and the silence felt wrong. No crickets, no wind, just my engine and the occasional crunch of gravel. I glanced at my GPS. No signal, just a spinning wheel and a blank map. That's when the signs started getting weird. One said, Summit, 2 miles. Then a minute later, another one. Summit, 4 miles. I thought maybe I'd read it wrong, but then it happened again. Summit, 6 miles. It felt like I was driving in reverse, even though the wheels kept climbing. The road beneath me, it didn't feel solid. I know that sounds insane, but I swear there were moments where the asphalt shifted like it was breathing or swelling beneath the tires. My steering got twitchy. I gripped the wheel tighter, kept my eyes on the center line, but the road curved where it shouldn't, sloped in ways that made no sense. I leaned forward, scanning the bends ahead for some kind of structure, any sign that I was still on a real road, but there was nothing. No power lines, no guardrails. Just black woods and a mountain road that felt older than anything I'd ever driven, and it was taking me somewhere I hadn't agreed to go. I don't know how long I'd been driving when I saw the tunnel. It was short, just a concrete arch with crumbling walls, the kind you see on old mining roads. I passed through it slow, lights flickering as I rolled inside, then out the other side. A few minutes later, I spotted a collapsed gas station. The roof caved in, pump handles rusted and dry. Just beyond that, a billboard half swallowed by dirt. Couldn't make out the ad, just some woman's face, smiling and sun-bleached to a ghostly blur. 10 minutes passed, then I saw the tunnel again, same arch, same cracks, same scorch marks on the left wall. I felt my gut twist, but I kept driving. Maybe I'd just gotten turned around, I thought. Maybe I missed a fork. But then came the gas station, still collapsed, still abandoned. And that billboard, the exact same smear of a face, staring through the dirt like it had been waiting for me. I circled the steering wheel like I was trying to break out of a dream. My GPS was still dead. No signal. Just a black screen with a mocking blue dot that hadn't moved in miles. Then the CB crackled. At first, just static. Then, my voice. Not just someone who sounded like me. My exact voice, calling out through the static. Help, anyone, please. Over and over, a broken loop of my own desperation. I ripped the mic out of its cradle, heart pounding. Was someone messing with me? Echoing my own words back at me? Then something thudded in the trailer. Hard, I jolted. I hadn't loaded anything. This was supposed to be a no-cargo run, just repositioning the rig. But that sound wasn't metal rattling. It was weight shifting. Like something heavy inside had moved. I pulled off onto a gravel patch, grabbed my flashlight, and climbed out. Circled to the back. The door was sealed, same as when I left the yard. Padlock still on, but it looked scratched. Like someone, or something, had been clawing from the inside. That's when I realized I wasn't driving the road anymore. The road was driving me. It was below freezing when I saw her, standing alone on the shoulder, coat wrapped tight, arms crossed, staring, straight at my headlights. I was so deep in the mountains by then I hadn't seen another soul in hours. My first instinct was to drive past. No way anyone should have been out there, but something about the way she looked at me, not scared, not desperate, just patient, made me ease off the gas. I pulled over and cracked the door. "You okay?" I called out. She nodded once. "Where are you headed?" Again, just a nod. I don't know why I opened the passenger door. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I just didn't want to be alone anymore. She climbed in without a word. No thanks, no small talk. Just folded her hands in her lap and stared out the windshield like she'd been riding with me all along. I kept glancing at her as I drove, trying to piece together what was off. Her skin looked pale, too pale, like candle wax. Her clothes were clean but old, outdated. And when she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost humming. "You've passed that tunnel 3 times now." I froze. I hadn't told her about the loop, or the trailer, or the voices. "You're not lost," she whispered. "You've just been seen." That's when I felt it again, that weight in the trailer shifting, settling like it was listening. I turned toward her to ask who she was, what she meant, but she was gone. Seatbelt still buckled, door still closed. The cab was freezing cold, colder than outside. My breath fogged the air like I'd left a window open, but every seal was shut tight. I pulled over in a panic, searched the sleeper, the roadside, even walked 50 feet back with my flashlight scanning the trees. Nothing. No footprints. No trail. No woman. I climbed back into the cab, locking the doors this time, but the seat still held the faint impression of someone who'd just been there. And on the inside of the fogged-up passenger window, clear as day, were 5 fingerprints, pressed from the inside. That stretch of road finally broke me. I don't know how long I'd been driving, but the sky had shifted from deep night to this weird, bruised shade of violet, like a sunrise stuck in reverse. The stars weren't where they should have been. Some twinkled in slow spirals, others didn't move at all. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, even pulled over to splash cold water on my face. Nothing changed. My dashboard clock spun like a slot machine. 2:17. Then 9:42. Then back to blank dashes. My phone was dead. My watch stopped ticking. I grabbed my logbook to see how long I'd been at it. And that's when my hands started to shake. Entries I didn't write. Whole pages, filled with times, locations I never passed, and sentences, full paragraphs, scribbled in handwriting that wasn't mine. Just looping lines that started to resemble my own voice inside my head. "You're not where you think you are. You're not who you think you are." I slammed the book shut and turned the rig around. I didn't care about the delivery anymore. I just wanted to go back. But the road behind me? Gone. Literally gone. Not like I missed a turn, like it had never existed at all. Just dense forest stretching behind my trailer, undisturbed and thick, like nothing had passed through in years. I floored it forward, desperate for any break-in. The madness, but every mile took me deeper into something I couldn't explain. Then the CB crackled again. This time I didn't just hear my voice. I heard me, screaming, clear, panicked, begging. "Get out, now! Get out before it finishes! Rewriting you." The words echoed like I was caught between 2 channels, one in the present, the other in whatever nightmare I was sliding into. The steering wheel jerked suddenly, dragging me toward the shoulder. I fought it, my whole body shaking as I kept control. But the truck wanted to veer, like something was guiding it off the edge toward the trees or the cliff or whatever was waiting just out of sight. That's when I knew. It wasn't just my route that was changing. I was changing. They found me 3 days later, curled up near a ridge with frostbitten fingers and no memory of how I got there. No truck, no trailer, just me, barefoot in the dirt, muttering about tunnels and voices and a woman who never opened a door. The medics said I was lucky. I don't feel lucky. They searched for weeks. Dogs, drones, choppers. No sign of the rig, no tire marks, not even disturbed soil where I swore the road had been. Just untouched wilderness like nothing human had ever passed through it. I tried retracing my steps, even went back with maps and guides. Nothing. Every route I thought I'd taken was gone, overwritten by the land, like it never existed. But the Rockies, they still call to me. Some nights, when the wind's just right, I hear static through my walls. I wake up to dirt under my nails, to pages in my logbook I don't remember writing. If you ever find yourself rerouted in those mountains and the road ahead isn't on your GPS, don't follow it. Turn around. Because some paths aren't meant to be driven, and if you do, pray that whatever you become still remembers how to come back. I've seen things on the road that'd make most people quit the job cold, but nothing ever got under my skin like what happened that night in the sleeper cab. I was 1,000 miles into a solo run, halfway through the shift, when I noticed blood dripping from the ceiling just above my bunk, and the craziest part, I was still driving. Wheels moving, engine humming, nothing in the mirrors. But that deep red drip was sliding down the inside panel like gravity had gone rogue. Most guys laugh when I mention it, so I stopped talking. But I know what I saw, what I felt. That rig wasn't just haunted, it was wrong. Like it had memories that didn't belong to me but somehow started bleeding into mine. Dreams that weren't mine, thoughts I never had, places I never went. Some nights I still hear it, the soft, sticky tap of something hitting the mattress. I haven't stepped foot in a sleeper since, don't plan to, and if you ever find yourself in a truck that smells too clean, too metallic, with just a hint of rot underneath, check the ceiling, because whatever bled in that cab never really stopped. It was supposed to be an easy haul, solo overnight from Missouri to a drop yard just outside Albuquerque. No rush, no special cargo, the kind of run I usually liked. Quiet road, long night, good pay. Dispatch called late in the afternoon, said my usual rig was in for maintenance, and they were assigning me a backup unit. Sleeper cab, full tank, all ready, hooked to a trailer and ready to go. All I had to do was grab the keys and hit the road. The truck looked fine from the outside, a little older than what I'm used to, but solid. The moment I opened the door, though, something felt off. The cab smelled sharp, chemical, like antiseptic, but not fresh, like it was trying to hide something. Beneath it was this faint, metallic scent that clung to the air, almost sweet in a way that made my stomach turn. I climbed in and tossed my gear onto the bunk. That's when I noticed the logbook. It was already sitting on the dash, open, pen tucked inside like someone had just stepped out. I flipped through the pages. At least a week's worth of entries were filled in, but the handwriting wasn't mine. Different ink, different style. The name signed at the bottom of the logs wasn't mine either. It read, G. Marlowe. I'd never heard of the guy. Checked the dispatch printout, only my name listed. I called into the office, asked if the truck had been used recently. They brushed it off, said it had been in the yard for weeks, cleared and sanitized, but the sheets in the sleeper were creased. There were coffee rings on the console, like someone had been using it, just not officially. Still, I needed the money. I buckled in, adjusted the mirrors, and fired up the engine. The rumble calmed me for a second until the sleeper lights flickered, once, twice, then stayed dim. Probably a bad fuse, I told myself, but when I glanced into the rear view again just for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow sitting on the bunk. And when I turned around, nothing. Just my bag. Just the silence. It was somewhere past Amarillo, when I first heard the drip. Subtle at first, barely audible over the hum of the road and the low growl of the engine. I thought maybe a loose water bottle was leaking in the back, but it kept going, slow, rhythmic, like the tick of a clock. Drip, drip, drip. I reached behind me while driving, fumbling across the top of the bunk to feel for moisture, and when my fingers touched it, I froze. It was warm, thick. I pulled my hand forward, and in the faint glow of the dash, I saw it. Red. Not water, not condensation. Blood. Fresh. For a long second, I couldn't breathe. I hit the hazards and pulled, Onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under my tires as I killed the engine. The night outside was dead quiet. No lights, no other trucks. Just that god-awful silence pressing in on me. I grabbed my flashlight, flung open the sleeper door, and aimed the beam at the ceiling. Nothing. Dry. Perfectly clean. I crawled halfway into the sleeper, checked the seams, the panels. There wasn't a single drop, but when I looked at my hand again, still wet, still red, I stepped outside to breathe. My head was spinning and I started questioning myself. Maybe I'd touched something earlier. Maybe the truck wasn't clean after all. I checked the underside of the bunk, the overhead light, even sniffed. The AC vents, nothing, no source, no explanation. A few miles up the road, I stopped at a small truck stop. Pulled into the far end of the lot, popped the cab door, and sat on the step under the dome light staring at my hand. The blood was gone. No stain, no smell, no residue. Like it had evaporated into nothing. I flagged down another driver, asked him to take a look at something in my sleeper. He gave me a weird look but followed me anyway. I pointed at the ceiling, explained what happened. He laughed, said I was probably dreaming with my eyes open, said the cab looked fine, but when I climbed back in alone, the dripping had already started again. I parked just before midnight at a rest stop tucked between two hills, the kind of place truckers only use when they've got no other choice. The lot was half full, engines humming like a low growl across the valley. I killed my lights, killed the engine, and sat there for a while, staring into the windshield like it owed me answers. I didn't want to go into the sleeper, not after, earlier. But I was running on fumes. Coffee wasn't cutting it anymore. So I crawled back, pulled the curtain shut behind me, and laid down. That's when I noticed the sound. Not the drip this time, something else. The sleeper creaked like it was settling, but too deliberately, like someone shifting their weight above me. I stared at the ceiling, every muscle tight. The sound came again, thud, thud, small, soft impacts, as if someone was tapping gently from the inside of the roof. Then I heard a voice. At first I thought it was coming from outside, some CB chatter bleeding through. But it wasn't. It was inside the sleeper, muffled, like it was pressing through the walls. Low gravelly whispers that built into something clearer, and then I heard it, my own voice. It said my name, not like a thought, not in my head, spoken, out loud. Hey, get up. I launched forward, heart jackhammering in my chest, yanked the curtain open. The cab was empty, totally still. But the hairs on my neck wouldn't settle. I needed to ground myself. I grabbed the logbook off the dash just to prove I was still me, still in control. But the pages were full. Not just the earlier entries, new ones. Written in ink I didn't remember using. Whole paragraphs logged in my name, talking about things I hadn't done, places I hadn't passed, thoughts I didn't have. My hands trembled as I flipped to the back cover. That's when I saw it, scratched deep into the vinyl wall above the headrest. My name, over and over, each one carved in uneven, frantic lines. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink. The sleeper wasn't just haunted. It knew me. By sunrise, I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. Whatever was happening in that cab wasn't normal, and I wasn't about to be another story passed around over bad coffee at some truck stop diner. I needed answers. Something real to explain the voices, the blood, the names in the logbook. So I parked off an old frontage road and started tearing that rig apart. I stripped the bedding, pulled down the lining, opened every compartment, even the panel under the dash. Nothing. But when I ran my hand along the inside roof of the sleeper, I felt it. An edge. A seam that didn't match the others. Hidden. Beneath the plastic molding, just above where the dripping had started, I grabbed my pocket knife and pried it loose. The panel popped open with a crack and the smell hit me first. Not rot exactly, but old blood. Metallic and stale, like something sealed in too long. Inside was a narrow crawl space, no bigger than a suitcase. And inside that, scratches. Dozens of them. Tiny gouges like fingernails had clawed into the wood, and dried blood, brown, flaking, splattered across the interior like a silent scream frozen in time. But the worst part was the ID badge. It had a face, a name, a company logo. G. Marlow, Operator 729B. I felt everything stop. That was the name in the logbook, the guy whose handwriting had filled my trip sheets, the guy whose rig I was now driving. I scrambled out of the cab and called dispatch, asked for any info on this truck's history. They put me on hold for nearly 20 minutes before someone came back with a flat voice. No record of a G. Marlow. That unit was out of service until this week. That's a lie. I looked again at the logbook. The final entry, dated exactly 1 year ago to the day, ended with 4 words scribbled in jagged ink. It wants a driver. I stared at the truck, my reflection warped in the chrome. The same route, the same cab, the same voices. And suddenly I knew. I hadn't been assigned this load. I'd been chosen for it. I drove straight back to the yard, didn't even finish the route. Parked the rig, tossed the keys on the desk, and told dispatch. I was done for good. They barely looked up like they'd heard it all before. Maybe they had. Maybe I wasn't the first. I left everything behind that day. My license, my gear, the road. Thought if I cut the cord clean it would stop. But it didn't. Now I do Tempe. Jobs, keep my head down. I haven't set foot in a sleeper cab since. But some nights, when I'm parked alone in my car, waiting for the morning to break, I hear it again. The creaking, the soft thud above the roof. Once I even heard my name, whispered low like it came from inside the ceiling. And every time I close my eyes, I see that badge. G. Marlow's face burned into my memory like an unfinished sentence. I've tried forgetting, tried moving on. But whatever was in that truck, it wasn't tied to the rig. It was tied to me. So if you ever hear a drip behind your head while the engine's still running, don't look up. Whatever it is, it wants to be remembered.